So, Ghost of Tsushima's PC release is mere days away now, and sadly my predictions about bad actors trying to derail the earnest player enthusiasm for this amazing game has of course come to pass. And unfortunately, as arrogant and pretentious as it makes me sound, and I know some of you really hate that, old Blunty was right. Again. It was right again. How many times is that now? All of the times? All of the time. Almost all of the times. My genius continues to be the terrible burden I shoulder with the best humility anyone has ever had in the history of the world, I'm afraid. And it's Helldivers 2 players' fault, of course. I'd honestly hoped I was done having a go at these idiots at this point, but, here we are. And we're here because, well, they got what they asked for. But they didn't actually think about what they were asking for and what the repercussions were. I've had a lot to say about the Helldivers 2 clown show, the trash fire, the embarrassment of gamerisms that they are, and a fair chunk of it would fall under the heading of what people without imagination who can only express themselves with memes would call a gaming take that would have you be like. And yes, I'm aware of the irony of mocking mindless meme lords if indeed I did go ahead with the idea for the thumbnail I had for this video. I hung a lampshade on it. Now, where did I put my Chekhov's gun? Hello again, I am Blunty, and I really love Ghost of Tsushima, and I especially love that it is now being freed from the shackles of being a console-exclusive game. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it on my PS4 Pro, I enjoyed the expansion on my PS5, and I have been aching to play through it again, but I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for the PC release before I did so. But it is free now, from performance caps, from system restrictions, from a crappy controller with a 4-hour battery life, from proprietary hardware buy-ins, and all that kind of stuff. Also, free to have the ever-loving Dango Balls modded out of it to extend its life into infinity. And here's a question before we get on with the serious business here. What do you think the first mods will be? The ever-trusty Thomas the Tank Engine mod? The horse being, of course, the likely target for that one. How about an Everyone is Always Naked mod, or more specifically, knowing modders as I do, all the women are naked with big physics floppity boppity bouncy boobies and enormous inflated bums. Or maybe a mod that turns all the swords into lightsabers and all the Mongols into stormtroopers. That one gets my vote, by the way. Lightsabers and stormtroopers. In any case, fun days ahead. Now, the Helldivers thing. I spent a whole video debunking a big pile of lies and misinformation that the fandom was spreading around the game, and specifically how the PSN stuff works. Because there was a lot of, you know what, let's be generous this time and call it simple ignorance around how PSN works, what it's for, why it was implemented, when it was implemented, that kind of stuff. Now, I'm a long way from being a Sony fan. In fact, I've taken the bat to their knees more frequently than anything else. And it really puts a sour taste in my mouth when I'm put in the position of effectively defending them, which I wasn't actually doing, but for some people it seemed that way because I wasn't agreeing with them when they wanted to hate Sony because of lies instead of hating Sony because of truths. But gamers being gamers, every time you dismantle what they thought was a rock-solid argument for being a screeching hose of piss-coloured hate, they just shift the goalpost to desperately try and keep a reason to be mad, and shift everything else into that lovely little pocket of cognitive dissonance. In any case, dismantled argument after dismantled argument after dismantled argument, they eventually settled smugly on the fact they claimed to be fighting for their fellow gamers. No one dives unless we all dive became the war cry. You see, while PSN accounts are only officially supported in 69 countries, and I haven't actually double-checked that number, I just seen it repeated a few times, but the fact is the real number doesn't actually matter for the purposes of the argument we're making here, so let's just pretend 69 is correct because it's a funny number. But the game Helldivers 2 was listed on Steam and sold in hundreds more countries. Well, about 170-ish more countries. But again, actual number doesn't matter, so let's just say hundreds for dramatic effect, shall we? Because Helldivers players are okay with misinformation. But when the publisher, Sony, was getting ready to turn back on the requirement to link a PSN account to Steam for Helldivers 2 to work properly, as far as they planned anyway going forward, they delisted the game from all the regions PSN isn't supported because they realized that was an issue, selling the game to people who can't actually, quote-unquote legally, make a PSN account. So why was it being sold there to begin with? It's a mystery, because the PSN requirement was always present, as we've discussed at length before, And as the game studio's own CEO will tell you, they knew it was going to be a requirement fully 6 months before the game even launched. Why was it listed in places where you can't make a native PSN account? Well, someone messed up. Nobody's talking about who messed up or how they messed up. But Sony fixed that oversight, that accident or incompetence, by delisting it in those countries where you can't, make a local PSN account. Then, once Sony stalled their plans for a hard PSN requirement for everybody in Helldivers 2, the playbase claimed a proud victory. Yay, we got what I wanted. You don't have to have a PSN account anymore. We win! And they went back to playing. Well, I say went back to playing, but the truth is, as I proved very, very simply, basically no one in that community actually had enough personal integrity to stand by their own stated beliefs and stop playing the game in protest. We all dive together or we don't dive was never actually something they believed in or demonstrated in any way at all, because they never actually stopped diving to protest at all, ever. And guess what happened to those delisted countries after Sony decided to back down? Well, they are still delisted. But the Helldivers 2 playbase doesn't actually care about that. We all dive together was an utter lie. Otherwise, they would still be protesting, wouldn't they? Because you can't all dive together, can you? They think they won a victory, and that's all their basic comprehension skills allow them to process. PSN is not a hard requirement anymore, therefore victory. We all dive together and no one dives together, yada yada yada. Horse shit. So now they've all gone back to what they were doing before this controversy, and that is infighting and whining about nerfs and updates and a new gun isn't as good as the old gun and why is it even there and some such garbage. None of them care that the game remains delisted in like 170 other countries still. So again, so much for we all dive together or none of us do, right? But the blowback of all this brings us back to Ghost of Tsushima, the thing I wanted to talk about. Ghost of Tsushima is the first of Sony's PC ports to include their new integrated PlayStation overlay, a system that allows seamless interaction, syncing, cross-play, voice chat, trophy sharing, and other PlayStation console-specific features and whatnot to their PC ports. In Ghost of Tsushima's case, it's optional for the entire base game, because it is a single-player game, so you don't really need any of that stuff. You can use it if you like for the trophy sharing and whatnot. But it is a required thing for the also, of course, optional multiplayer mode that came along after the game's original launch. And because the multiplayer mode is part and parcel of the game install, it's built into the game, and because PSN is needed to make that part of the game work in the way they designed it, even if the entirety of the single-player campaign and the DLC can be played without it, that still means that PSN has to be listed as a requirement on Steam, because technically speaking, you can't play 100% of the content that the game delivers without a PSN requirement. Even if you never intend to even touch the multiplayer stuff yourself, the PSN account is still technically required to access that part of the game, so there you are. And that's why you see PSN listed as a requirement on Steam, even though it's not a requirement for anything except for the small portion of entirely optional, entirely skippable multiplayer stuff. But all of that means, because of the tantrum Helldivers 2 players threw, Ghost of Tsushima now has been delisted from those countries that don't officially support PSN accounts. And putting it back there without running the risk of the same kind of piss-pants tantrums that Helldivers saw would mean engineering a whole new separate branch and separate install of the game. That's a lot of work, a lot of person hours, a lot of money to spend to strip out the multiplayer content so PSN wouldn't be required for any part of the game. That's not so simple though, because the way it's implemented is not through just like a main menu option. It's not like a separate little bit of the game. It is immersively built in through the in-world NPCs. You actually have to talk to in-world NPCs. They tell you a tale, and you join the multiplayer little side adventure, and then you come back to the single-player game once you're done. So it's not just a matter of deleting a menu to remove access to this mode. Now, we've known about Tsushima's PSN requirements for about a month now, and it wasn't until the Piss Pants tantrum that the Helldivers 2 player base threw that anyone, anywhere, considered it even a small issue. This knowledge, this fact of its existence, existed for weeks on end until people decided to suddenly try and make it an issue. No one cared, just like no one cares about the existing Sony games with Steam and PSN linking in them already, that have existed this way for years already without issue. Like Spider-Man, for example, which is when I first linked my PSN to my Steam account. I think doing so gave you access to like an extra costume or something at the time. I don't know. I don't remember. All I remember was it was just a thing you could do, and I'm like, fuck it, I'll do it. And it's never been a problem since. It's just worked in the background ever since transparently. In fact, I forgot I did it until the Helldivers stuff came along, and I went, And I started thinking about it all again. That's how transparently this works. So all the people whining and bitching about, oh, I don't want to have to log in 2 times just to play a game, log into my Steam and then log into my PS. And you don't have to do that. That's the entire point of linking them. It becomes seamless, invisible, dumbass. But now, well, now a bunch of people get denied access to a superb game entirely because Sony and or Valve don't want to deal with the petty, piss-soaked screeching of idiots who swallowed a bunch of misinformation hook, line, and sinker because it let them be part of an angry mob online. And therefore, for the first time in their lives, I imagine, feel like their opinion mattered. We don't need this. We don't need any of this. As I talked about in my original video, for closing in on literal decades plural now, gamers have happily and easily, and just made alt accounts to skip past regional restrictions and limitations like this with rarely an issue at all. Xbox players do it, PlayStation players do it, Nintendo players do it. The companies don't actually give a single crap if you register an account in a region you don't actually live in. None of this was a big deal until the screeching conspiracy theory baby tantrum dipshits of the dying Helldivers 2 playerbase decided to throw their little tantrum about something they didn't actually even believe in strongly enough to stop playing, even for a few days, to protest it. All the time screaming, nobody dives unless we all dive. Like, it was bullshit. Zero integrity. Absolutely zero integrity in the lot of them. And now here we are. You got what you wanted, didn't you? Sony, quote-unquote, listened. And now Sony are being even more restrictive and limited and locked down. The exact opposite thing you claimed to have wanted to get out of them. In the parlance of the meme-numbed minds of your kind, you get what you frelling deserve. Oh, there's my Chekhov's gun. I knew I put it somewhere. Thank you for watching. I am Blunty. Most of this video has just been a test to see how well my voice would hold up because I lost my voice because I've been sick for basically a week, so like really, really sick. Thank you to the patrons scrolling up above there. I did cough and sputter a few times while recording this, but I think I should be good to stream today, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Because I want to finish up a few things in my new Fallout 4 playthrough before we move on to Ghost of Tsushima on PC next weekend. Ah, crap.